You didn't choose this town, it chose you. Maybe you were low on gas, needed a bite to eat, or just needed a break from the long, empty highway. The town looked normal enough at first, quaint even. A handful of storefronts, a diner with flickering neon, a gas station with an attendant who barely glanced up when you pulled in. You stretched your legs, filled your tank, maybe even grabbed a cup of coffee, and then you got back in your car and drove off. That's when you realized something was wrong. A few miles down the road, the town came back into view. The same diner, the same gas station, the same damn welcome sign. You checked your GPS. The route hadn't changed. You turned around, tried another road. Same result. No matter which way you go, the town won't let you leave. At first, you tell yourself it's just a mistake, a trick of the roads. You try again, maybe blaming exhaustion, bad directions, or an old highway map. But as you keep looping back, mile after mile, hour after hour, the truth starts creeping in. Something is wrong here, and you're stuck in it. The town doesn't just trap you physically, it gets in your head. You'll start second-guessing what you saw, what you heard, what you thought you knew. The locals are polite, too polite. Their smiles never quite reach their eyes. If you stay too long, if you ask the wrong questions, they start changing. Somewhere in the distance, past the rows of houses and two perfect storefronts, the cornfield rustles, even when there's no wind. The longer you're here, the more you'll feel it watching. But you still have a chance. People have gotten out before. A few, not many. They left clues, warnings for the next unfortunate soul. They carved messages into bathroom stalls, scratched words into gas pumps, whispered secrets to the few who hadn't been swallowed by the town's grip. This is what they left behind, a survival guide of sorts. Read carefully. If you follow these tips, you might make it out. Ignore them. You won't just stay here forever, you'll become part of it. Tip 1. Don't accept hospitality. The people here are too nice. The moment they realize you're new, they'll welcome you like an old friend. They'll offer food, a place to rest, maybe even a spare room if the motel's full. And somehow, it always is. They'll invite you in with warm smiles, gentle voices, and eyes that don't blink enough. You might be tempted. Maybe you're tired, frustrated, desperate for a break after hours of looping roads and dead ends. Maybe you convince yourself that you're being paranoid, that the folks here are just small-town friendly. Don't do it. Their houses aren't homes. They look right at first. Family photos, comfy furniture, the smell of something cooking in the kitchen. But stay long enough and you'll notice the details that don't add up. The photos in the frames, the same family in every house, different arrangements, different outfits, but always the same faces, always smiling. The food, too perfect. No matter what they serve, it's always fresh, always steaming, but it never seems to run out, no matter how much you eat. And no one else at the table ever takes a bite. If you ask questions, they'll laugh, brush it off. If you press, their smiles get too wide. If you try to leave mid-meal, they don't let you. There was a man before you, a traveler, just passing through. He stayed for dinner at the sheriff's house. He sat at their table, drank their wine, smiled along with their jokes. But when he got up to go, When he realized the front door wouldn't open, the sheriff just kept smiling. The next morning, his car was still parked out front. It's still there now, rusted over, the windows dusted with time. But no one remembers him, and the sheriff still sets an extra place at the table. So when they invite you in, when they offer you a meal, a couch, a bed, say no. Stay on the street, sleep in your car if you have to. Just don't cross their threshold, because once you do, you're already theirs. Tip 2. The gas station attendant knows something. The gas station is the only place in town that feels even remotely normal. The lights buzz, the coffee is burnt, and the shelves are stocked with road trip essentials, chips, soda, aspirin. If you didn't already know something was wrong, you might not think twice about it. But the attendant knows. They won't say it outright, won't warn you directly, but watch them. Their hands tremble when they ring you up. Their eyes flick toward the door like they're waiting for something or watching for someone. They'll ask casual questions in a voice that's too careful, too measured. Where you headed? Been on the road long? Need a map? And that last one, need a map? That's the real test. Most travelers say no. They have a GPS, a phone, their own directions. But if you say yes, if you accept the map they offer, pay attention. Because sometimes they slip something else inside. A note, a key, a set of instructions scribbled in shaking handwriting. Maybe just a single phrase. Don't drink the water. There's a way out, but not at night. It knows you're here. If you press them, they'll deny it. Their eyes will go blank, their voice too even, like something flipped a switch. That means you pushed too far. There was another traveler before you, a woman who got too bold. She asked too many questions, grabbed the attendant's wrist when they tried to look away. She demanded answers. The next day, the gas station was empty. The shelves were fully stocked, the light still buzzing overhead, but the attendant was gone. Someone new took their place. Same uniform, same name tag, same face, but they didn't blink enough. And when they asked, "Need a map?" their hands didn't shake anymore. So take the map if it's offered. Read between the lines. But don't push too hard, because if they suddenly stop being afraid, that means it's already too late. Tip 3. The welcome sign is changing. Every town has a welcome sign. A simple greeting, a population count, maybe a catchy slogan. This town's sign is different. You probably didn't notice it at first. Why would you? You were busy driving, checking your phone, thinking about the gas station you just left. But after your second, third, fourth time, looping back through town, you'll start paying attention. And then you'll realize the sign isn't the same. The words shift, subtle at first. The population number changes, even though no one new has arrived. The slogan, if there even was one, morphs into something else, something personal. Welcome to Fairhaven might turn into welcome back. Home of friendly faces might become you shouldn't have stopped. Or worse, we see you. Some travelers have reported seeing their own name on the sign. Others swore it gave them a warning. One man, just another unlucky soul trying to pass through, claimed he saw a message scrawled across the bottom in dark, dripping paint. "You can still get out." The next time he passed, it said, "Too late." No one's sure how or why it changes. Some think it's the town itself speaking. Others say it's the ones who came before, the ones who never left. Maybe they're trying to help. Maybe they're just mocking you. Either way, pay attention. If the sign tells you to run, do it. Because if you ignore it, if you keep driving past without heeding the warning, one day, it won't just change the words, it'll change the road too. And then, no matter how hard you try, you'll never leave again. Tip 4. The streets don't follow logic. Maps won't help you here. You can trace the roads, mark the intersections, memorize the turns, but it won't matter. Because the town doesn't stay the same. You'll start noticing it after a few loops. Maybe the diner was on the left last time, but now it's on the right. Maybe a building you swore was abandoned yesterday now has fresh curtains in the window. Or maybe, just maybe, you drive past your own car, parked exactly where you left it hours ago, even though you never turned around. The roads don't lead out. No matter which way you go, which shortcut you take, you'll always end up back where you started. But that's not the worst part. Sometimes you'll see yourself. It won't be a reflection in the mirror or a shadow in the glass. It'll be you, another you, driving ahead, taking the same turns, making the same desperate attempts to leave. The first time it's a shock. The second time it's unsettling. By the third, you'll start to wonder which one is real. A traveler once tried to catch up to himself. He floored it, ignoring the way the streets blurred, the way the landmarks flickered between familiar and wrong. He reached out his window, screaming for the other him to stop, to look, to explain. The other him didn't. And then, just as he got close enough to see his own face, the road ended. A split second of empty blackness, a feeling like falling. And then, he was back at the gas station, the meter still full, the sun in the same place it had been hours ago. No memory of how he got there, no sign of the other him. So don't chase your own ghost. Don't stop to watch the buildings shift, or the roads stretch, or the houses move when you're not looking. Just keep driving, even if you don't know where you're going. Because the moment you start questioning which version of you is the real one, the town will decide for you. Tip 5. The cornfield is watching. You'll feel it before you see it, that creeping sensation on the back of your neck, like something just behind you, too close, too still. The way the air turns heavy, thick with the scent of damp earth and something else, something rotting. Then you'll see the field, tall rows of corn, stalks swaying even when there's no wind. At first it looks normal, just another stretch of farmland bordering the town, but stare too long, and you'll start to notice the gaps, the spaces between the stalks that seem too dark, too deep. Something is in there. People disappear in the cornfield, not just visitors, locals too. You won't hear their screams. You won't find their bodies. The town won't even acknowledge they were ever there. A woman named Claire went missing a few years back. Folks say she was last seen near the edge of the field, her flashlight flickering as she stepped between the rows. She was looking for her son, or at least something that sounded like him. They never found her, but a few days later, someone swore they saw her standing just inside the field, half hidden in the stalks. She didn't move. She didn't speak. She was just watching. They say her eyes were too wide. Her mouth was slightly open, like she wanted to say something but couldn't. And then she was gone. The next day, a new scarecrow appeared in the field. No one put it there. No one ever does. So listen carefully. If you hear your name whispered from the stalks, if you think you see a figure standing just beyond the rows, not quite stepping out, don't go in, no matter who it sounds like, no matter what it promises, because once you step between those stalks, once you let the darkness swallow you whole, you won't come back, not as yourself. Tip 6, the locals don't blink enough. At first glance, the people here seem normal. They smile, they make small talk, they go about their routines like anyone else. But something is off. You won't notice it immediately. Maybe it'll start with a conversation that feels too rehearsed, like they've said the same words 100 times before. Maybe it'll be the way their eyes linger on you a little too long, like they're memorizing your face. Or maybe you'll realize they don't blink enough. It's subtle at first. A waitress at the diner, standing too still behind the counter, eyes locked on your coffee like she's waiting for you to take a sip. A man on the sidewalk, his lips moving in a loop, whispering the same phrase under his breath, over and over. And then, when you finally notice, when you're sure they haven't blinked in minutes, they notice you noticing. That's when the shift happens. Their smiles stretch a little too wide. Their posture straightens, movements smoother, more deliberate. When they speak, their words are too perfect, too precise, like they're being spoken from somewhere else, by something else. A traveler once stayed too long at the diner, talking to a man in a suit who never blinked once. He started feeling uneasy, asked the waitress if she noticed. She just smiled. "We're all very attentive here." The traveler excused himself, hurried outside. When he glanced back through the diner window, everyone inside was staring at him. No one moved, no one spoke, and every single one of them was smiling. The next time he passed the diner, the man in the suit was gone, but a new figure sat in his place, wearing his exact clothes. So don't stare too long. Don't point it out. If they don't blink, pretend you don't notice. Because once they realize you've figured it out, they don't stop watching. Tip 7. Never enter a building that wasn't there before. The town shifts when you're not looking. You might think you're just remembering wrong. Maybe you were too tired, too distracted, too focused on finding a way out. But you're not mistaken. The buildings move, and sometimes they appear out of nowhere. A motel that wasn't there yesterday, a storefront with dust-free windows, and an open sign glowing in the dark. A diner that looks exactly like the one you ate at earlier, except the name is different. and so is the menu. These places want you to come inside. The motel will have a vacancy, the door already unlocked. The shopkeeper will greet you like an old friend, even if you've never met. The restaurant will have your favorite meal on special, cooked exactly how you like it. It's a trap. A man named Ben once stayed at one of these places, a hotel that wasn't there the day before. He was exhausted, figured it was worth checking out. Inside, the lobby smelled like fresh wood polish. The receptionist smiled. The key was already waiting for him. The room was too perfect. The bed made up just how he liked it. His favorite brand of beer in the mini fridge. A radio on the nightstand, playing a song he hadn't heard since childhood. It felt safe, familiar even. So he stayed the night. The next morning, the motel was gone. The lot where it stood was just an empty patch of dirt. Ben? He was never seen again. But a few days later, a new hotel appeared at the edge of town. Same shape, same colors, different name. The lights in room 3 flickered all night, and if you got too close, you swore you could hear knocking from the inside. So if you see a building you don't remember, if you swear it wasn't there before, keep walking. Because if you step inside, if you close the door behind you, the town will make sure there's one less traveler trying to leave. Tip 8. The town has a leaving time. Find it. Most people assume the town never lets you leave. That's not true. Every so often, at just the right moment, it opens a door. Maybe you'll feel it in the air, a sudden lightness after hours of suffocating stillness. Maybe the roads, for once, won't double back on themselves. Or maybe, for the first time since you got here, your GPS will start working again. That's your chance, your only chance. But the window doesn't stay open long. Some say the town lets people go on a schedule, but no one knows what that schedule is. Others think it picks at random, teasing you with a glimpse of freedom, only to yank it away at the last second. A man named Carter almost made it out once. He swore the streets looked clearer, less wrong than before. The welcome sign read, "One last chance." His radio, which had been dead since the moment he arrived, suddenly crackled with a song he recognized from back home. He floored it, and for a few perfect moments, the town disappeared in his rearview mirror. The road stretched ahead, open, endless, free. Then he hesitated. Maybe it was relief, maybe disbelief. Maybe he glanced back just for a second, just to make sure he was really leaving. That was enough. The road looped. The town was back in front of him. And this time, the welcome sign just said, "You missed it." He never got another chance. So pay attention. If you feel like the town is letting you go, don't question it. Don't stop for gas. Don't slow down. And whatever you do, don't look back. Because if you hesitate, even for a second, you won't get another try. Tip 9. Don't acknowledge the double. At some point, you're going to see yourself. Not a reflection, not a shadow, another you. It might happen quickly, a fleeting glimpse in a storefront window, a figure stepping around a corner just as you turn your head. Or it might be worse, more deliberate. You'll be walking down the street, and there they are, standing perfectly still, just watching you. Do not react. If you see them, if you make eye contact, it's already too late. No one knows exactly what the doubles are. They don't move like normal people, don't breathe the way they should. They're almost perfect, but something is always just slightly wrong. Their posture is too stiff. Their expressions are too empty. Their skin too smooth, like something wearing skin instead of having it. A woman named Danielle once spotted hers standing outside the diner late one night. She knew the rule, don't acknowledge it. But she hesitated, just for a second. That was enough. Her double smiled. Not a normal smile, a wide, stretching thing, too big for its face. And then it started walking toward her. She ran, locked herself in her motel room, turned off all the lights, hid under the bed, forced herself to stay silent. But in the dark she could hear it, pacing outside the door, then knocking, then whispering her own voice. The next morning, the door was open, the bed was made, Danielle was gone. But later that week, people started seeing someone who looked exactly like her walking around town. She didn't recognize anyone, and she never blinked. So if you see yourself, keep walking. Don't run. Don't stop. Don't acknowledge it. Because the second you do, it will take your place. Tip 10. If you hear your own voice in the cornfield, run. The cornfield is bad enough on its own. You already know something lives in there, something that watches. But the worst part, it learns. At first, you'll just hear rustling, a shift in the stalks that doesn't match the wind. Then maybe a whisper, too low to make out the words. If you turn toward it, it stops. But it knows you heard. That's when it starts using voices. Not just any voices, familiar ones. Maybe your mother, calling for help. A friend you lost touch with. Someone you swore you just saw in town a few minutes ago. And if you hesitate, if you so much as turn your head, it'll use yours. It'll start simple, your own voice soft and distant calling your name. Then it gets bolder. It'll mimic the way you talk, the way you breathe, the way you panic. It'll beg, it'll plead. And if you let it, if you step toward the sound, even just a little, the cornfield will open for you. Not all at once, just enough to let you slip in, enough to swallow you whole. A man named Sam learned this the hard way. He was smart, knew the rules, knew not to go near the field. But one night, as he walked past, he heard something, his own voice. Sam, please, help me. It was broken, desperate. He swore it even had his stutter, the one he hated, like it really was him. So he stepped closer, just once, just to see. The next morning, his truck was still parked by the gas station. His room at the motel was untouched. No one could remember the last time they saw him. But later that night, someone passing the cornfield heard something. A whisper, a voice, Sam's voice. And this time, it was laughing. So, if you hear your own voice coming from the cornfield, don't answer, don't look, and whatever you do, Don't step inside, because if you do, something else walks out. If you've read this far, you already know the truth. You're trapped. The roads won't take you where you want to go. The people here aren't really people. The town is watching, but you're not dead yet, and that means you still have a chance. Some have escaped before. A few, not many. They left behind warnings, whispers, scratched messages on bathroom stalls and gas pumps, notes slipped between the pages of old motel Bibles, frantic words carved into wooden tables. Don't blink. Never stop driving. If you hear yourself, run. It lets you leave, but only once. And the most desperate of all, it's in me. Please don't let me leave. The town won't kill you right away. It wants you to slip, to hesitate, to ignore a warning or break a rule. It doesn't need to chase you. It just needs you to make a mistake. Don't. If the gas station attendant gives you a map, take it. If the welcome sign changes, read it. If the roads open up, drive, and don't look back. Because one day, maybe tomorrow, maybe next week, the town will stop playing with you. The roads will stop looping. The buildings will stop shifting. The voices will stop calling from the field. And when that happens, you won't be leaving at all. Not as yourself, not as anything at all, so go. Now, before the town changes its mind.